Hello there, I'm Ben Eggett, and I want to teach you a bit about music theory and how to write music using Ruby. I'll also walk you through some principles of audio engineering along the way. I figure I'd rather show you than tell you, so here's a sneak peek of what I'd like to talk about. I've created a very simple gem here to help build some music. It only has one dependency, a wave file, which is a wave file writer that we'll use to output the music that we write. Everything else should be very familiar. So, in order to write music, we need to understand a bit about sound. What is sound? How do we create sound? What's a sound wave? And what's it look like? Let's take a quick look at building a note, which is going to be the base of all the music we write. All we really need to build notes is a bit of math and some methods from Ruby's enumerable. To create a note, we really just need to define a few things. The frequency of the note, which we're trying to build. In this case, we're going to use an A note, which is 440 Hertz. The sample rate at which our audio will play at. We'll use mono in this example, which is 22,050. The duration of the note, we're going to set that to 1 second. And we'll give it a file name of the wave that we're going to build. So I'm just going to set that to music. So let's go ahead and jump into Pry and check this out. There are a few methods we'll write to make this happen. We first need to calculate the total number of frames we will be writing. If we want 1 second of the note, we need 1 second's worth of frames. So we'll take our duration times sample size, and we'll get total frames. Next, we need to determine how many frames a cycle will span. Each frame, we want this fraction of a cycle. We'll get that by getting the frequency divided by the sample rate. Then, we need to define a sine wave cycle. What is a cycle? A cycle is a full sine wave, which is 2 pi radians. So, we'll do that math here and determine our sine wave cycle. And lastly, we'll map out all the cycles used to compose the audio file. So to create a note that's 1 second long, we need to write out all of the samples in the sine waves. Take a look at that. It spits back a long array of our sine waves. Now, that's kind of hard to visualize there. I've taken that array and thrown it into a graph here. This is what a note spectrum looks like. So we basically just defined every single point on this graph. There's obviously 22,050 points there. This is what all of them look like mapped out. As we go shorter and shorter, you can see how that audio file is composed. And we can see that really we're just writing individual sine waves. So there's 1 cycle, 2 cycle, 3 cycle, 4 cycle, etc. all the way up until we have this nice, long, beautiful sine wave. Okay? Now that we have all the samples of the sine wave defined, we just need to output it. We've built a simple outputter here where we're just setting a format and a buffer format and using this wave file gem to output the file. All it's doing is setting a file name and then creating a buffer which loads in all the samples and sets a buffer format and writes it out to a file. So we can then just call play on this and it'll output the file and play it. So we've taught you how to write a note. In addition to that, I'll teach you how to write octaves, chromatic scales, major scales, minor scales, modes, chords. Then we'll actually write chords. We can also write chord scales. And chord progressions, which we hear in everyday music. Clearly, this meant to be just a demo of a more detailed presentation. I think this talk would be a good fit at MtnWest Ruby Conf because it showcases how we can write some complex music with simple Ruby. And it's also kind of nice to learn and play with something non-work related every once in a while. If you agree and decide to pick this talk, I'll also demo some fun code that writes unique music programmatically. Who knows, maybe there's a MtnWest jingle that can come out of it or something. Anyways, thanks for listening.